People who are ghosting other people, have you ever been called out? If so, how did that make you feel? My biological brother was ghosted by the woman his father was dating, who fathered 3 kids with her. I was adopted, and so didn't meet my brother until our 30s. When I heard this, apparently our dad was awful, so it's good I was adopted out, but my brother lived through the worst of it. My brother was 14, living with his dad, the girlfriend and the 3 young boys they had together, when his dad was killed in a drunk driving accident. He was the drunk. My brother came home from school one day shortly after, and she had packed up the whole house and just left without telling him, he guesses, because he wasn't her responsibility. At 14 he came back to an empty house. He had to call his grandparents 3 hours away to come get him. Horrible. He built a good life for himself since, but can you even imagine what that must be like? Question mark? This is probably the saddest story I read on this thread. Really glad to see he had a happy ending. This happened recently. I had a friend I had known for 25 plus years. We wound up at the same company and realized we lived very close. She was all into office gossip and talked trash about people I liked. I asked her to stop. Any obstacle I was facing was dismissed because she had been through worse. When I needed to talk to someone about personal struggles I was having, she would talk over me and change the subject to her issues. This went on for a few years. I would hang up after talking to her and question why I bothered. Finally, I had enough. I ghosted her, and after few months, she reached out to me via text. I replied and told her why. I was not cruel, just honest. Now I'm mean and hurtful. I blocked her and am not regretting this at all. I think about her and hope all is well. I just needed to sever the ties. As the great Tupac Shakur once said, just because you lost me as a friend doesn't mean you gained me as an enemy. I still want to see you eat, just not at my table. Tupac also said revenge was the sweetest joy, next to getting pussy. Oh hey, I can answer this. This happened 9 years ago, when I was a teenager. I had started dating a guy who I really liked. He did not like my best friend, and would often make fun of her. I felt like my friendship with her was coming to an end anyway, because we were drifting apart. So I didn't stop him. His toxic behavior actually made me start resenting her. Eventually, I just ghosted her, left her on read, never hung out with her anymore. We didn't go to the same school, so I just never saw her. She sent me a long message asking why was I not talking to her? Did she make me mad? Did she do something wrong? It was a really heartbreaking message, and I pretty much told her that I felt like we weren't close anymore, that I was in a good relationship and I didn't feel like we were friends anymore. She responded by basically saying she understood with a sad face. I didn't talk to her for almost a year. I'm not sure what the push was. I was still dating the guy, but I missed her, and I texted her a very long message apologizing and groveling that I was wrong and stupid. Not sure what came over me, etc. She forgave me. I don't know why. I pulled a really shitty move and I know I did it when she was at a low point. I'm so extremely grateful that she decided to give me another chance. We are still best friends to this day, but her confronting me when I initially ghosted her was absolutely miserable and heartbreaking. I still feel like such a piece of shit for it. That's literally what my best friend did to me, except she hasn't come back. We'd known each other since we were in diapers. High school we went to different schools and didn't see each other much. I was being abused, and home life was horrible and she knew. We saw each other sporadically. We hung out the entire summer before she went off to college. Then we hung out once over summer and once over Christmas. And then she stopped answering my texts. I miss her. I miss her a ductin actually. This has been one of the hardest years of my life. I swear they just keep getting worse, and I could really use a friend. I could really use my best friend. The girl I used to put on skits with. My twin from another set of parents. My beauty art war, whatever the heck it was. She reached out to me for my birthday this year to wish me well and hope I was safe. But when I texted back she never answered. I called her out on it about a year ago. I asked her if I did something BC we weren't close anymore and that I missed my best friend. She told me we were still sisters and that she was just busy with college. I guess the fake friends she submitted this are more important than the friend who grieved her dad's death with her. Eater. Holy shit, thanks for the awards, guys. The real ghosters are ghosting this thread. Maybe the real ghosters were the friends we made along the way. I'm currently ghosting 2 friends. They are a married couple that wanted to bring me into the relationship. It didn't end well, and after 2 months of not speaking to each other, they reached out again. I was willing to re-establish only friendship, but they still were pushing for me to be romantic with the wife. I was pretty uncomfortable and felt anxious about it, especially after the fallout, and decided for everyone's safety and well-being, I needed to block them. They sorely lacked adequate communication for a 3-way relationship and were pretty manipulative with me and used my naivety and trust in them to get what they wanted. Sometimes, ghosting is the answer. Not always. If there's a chance to discuss it rationally, then do it. But if you don't have that chance, ghost. Edit to add, I consider this ghosting because I cut contact without an explanation on seemingly good, in their prof terms. I've always thought that is what ghosting was. The only time I expressed I wanted their friendship was when we initially reconnected after the fight. After that, they began pursuing me again, and I decided to completely block them without talking to them about it further. Edit 2. Thank you to everyone that replied. I'm really shocked that there have been so many people with similar experiences and glad to know it wasn't just a me thing. I figured it was just me getting wrapped up in something wild, and it snowballed out of control. I don't have the energy to reply anymore, but I do want to thank everyone for their valuable input and whatnot. Have a great week. Nobody comes into my house and doesn't fuck my wife, sir. I'm just here to fix the cable. 90% of people who ghost have an entirely different version of events. I was accused of ghosting someone who had stopped talking to me months earlier. I think I was supposed to chase them and fix things. My ex constantly wanted me to fight for her. After a while I was just like, why? I learned it's a waste of time to fight for a person back in my teen years. By the time you need to start fighting to be with a person, they've already made up their minds and have mentally and emotionally moved on. Fighting to stay in a relationship is exhausting and depressing. If someone truly wants to be with you, they won't play games like this. I've ghosted, but usually don't get called out. I used to be honest, but having more than one dude call me names for not thinking they were a good match killed that habit. Worst was a dude I'd gone on a couple dates with. He was nice enough, just a little too odd and clingy. Insisted on picking me up. I refused and met him instead. Insisted on driving me to the theater between dinner and the movie. I refused again. Then acted weird in the theater, yelling at people if they so much as coughed. After the movie, he was bold enough to go for a kiss. I did the cheek turn thing, then left. In the 20 minutes it took me to get home, there were over a dozen texts, each one more frantic than the last. Because I hadn't replied yet, I immediately noped out and ghosted. For weeks I got messages before he told me he thought I was better than this. But then I'd get the odd text, like he was testing the water. The weirdest was MMN. Shamrock Shake. Want one? Lexi? Apostrophe. I'm very glad he didn't have my home address. I was recently ghosted by a guy I'd been seeing. He actually reached out and apologized after a while, so that was nice of him. But it doesn't take away how much it hurt. My way of thinking is if someone ghosts you, let the dead rest. No point in chasing after someone who doesn't want to be chased. I was low-key dating / hanging out with this guy that started ghosting me. After a while I texted and just asked him to honestly tell me what was up. He explained in great detail that he met someone else and had fallen hard for her. He apologized sincerely for being a dick by ghosting, and I actually really appreciated some brutal honesty for once. I've dated so many assholes that would lie about everything or gaslight me that I always prefer the harshest truth now. 2 years ago I met a woman online. After dating her for 2 weeks, my father passed away. I told her up front that I'm not in a good place emotionally, wasn't comfortable sharing my grieving process with someone I had just met, and that I couldn't promise I would still be open to dating anyone in the near future. She called me out for ghosting her a month later. Sorry for your loss. I'm confused why she called you out considering you didn't even ghost her. When things aren't going well in my life, I turn inward and isolate myself. I'm not good at receiving support, and therefore I avoid people. When I'm not doing well, it makes me ghost the people I care about, and then suddenly contact them again, and the cycle continues. I've been called out on it and I'm honest. I'm sure it's hurtful, and it makes me feel awful, but I don't know how to be anything but the happy supportive friend that you'll get close to, and I'll disappear when I can't be that. This is exactly how I feel, but I have never been able to put it so well. I disappear when I feel like I can't be a happy supportive friend. I feel you. I do this too when shit starts to pile up. I just tap out and stop trying, which makes me feel worse. And then that just spirals me out of control, which pushes me away from people even more. The hardest part is that I'm so aware of it, but when it happens, I feel completely helpless. Here, we can use this as sort of a personal life away message of sorts for letting others know. Hi. Thanks for your message. Things currently aren't going well in my life, and therefore I'm turning inward and isolating myself. I'm not good at receiving support, and therefore I avoid people when I'm not doing well. Instead of ghosting you, I just wanted to let you know that I will be mentally and emotionally away for a bit. As soon as I'm back, I will let you know. You may reach my cat, Alfred, at xxxxxxxxxxx for anything urgent. Thank you and good day. Of course, no guarantees that any of us will remember to let folks know we are back, but maybe this can help disrupt the cycle that /u/unclairbigfoot alludes to. Not sure. I'm ghosting my emotions right now. Ask again later. Bury them deep down like a volcano and hope they don't resurface. Emotional composting. Okay, I won't call it ghosting, but I sometimes don't like talking to my mom. We have a very strained relationship and sometimes it's better for my own mental health to just not engage. Anyway, one time I was legitimately at the gym with my trainer and didn't answer. She left a voicemail that said, "You always have your phone on and answer when BF calls or texts. Why do you hate me so much? I'm a 32-year-old mother of 3, raising my kids and my boyfriend's son. I'm busy. I'm tired. I just want to be left alone. You bought a phone for your convenience, not for other people's, so you can choose when you want to use it." I only ghosted him after he asked me out, and I declined, and he became hostile. Then he started throwing more tantrums and eventually went to my friends and asked them to stop being friends with me. So yes, I was wrong for not blocking him immediately. That's not ghosting. That's setting boundaries. I'm a ghoster. I feel terrible about it. I mean to write and mean to write. Then time has passed, so I have to write something really good. Then more time passes, but it is around my birthday or a holiday, so looks weird if I reach out then. So I communicate daily with you in my head. Many apologies and conversations. My anxiety just gets overwhelming. If you contact me, I will usually respond to the branch gladly. I've been ghosting this girl I liked, and she hasn't noticed, because I'm the one who always starts the conversation. I now know that I'm not technically ghosting her. Please stop commenting that. This happened to me. I was close friends with someone at work for 17 years. 17! Exclamation mark. Then the school we worked in closed, and we were moved to different schools. For the first 4 months, I made all the effort in staying connected. After Christmas break, I just stopped. It took her 6 weeks to reach out to me. That was a really hard time. Yes, my best friend of 10 years, I helped plan, pay for, and was in her wedding, did the same to me. I noticed that I was always the one making plans, contacting first, etc. So I stopped. I haven't seen or heard from her in 2 years. The question. People who are ghosting people. Apostrophe. The replies. Let me tell you about this time I got ghosted. Apostrophe. It's also a lot of people who don't understand what ghosting is. It made me feel like shit, to be honest. That's not who I am. But at the time I was going through a rough patch in a relationship and my home life wasn't great either. Being alone felt like the only option at one point until a good friend I ghosted expressed his concerns. I hope you told them, because they would have understood. I'm currently ghosting this girl that has been manipulating me for months. I was attached to her so much that she could just withhold affection until I did what she wanted. And she had me convinced that the reason she was so stingy with her love was because I was doing something wrong, or I just wasn't good enough. I met someone else, and I've been giving the first girl the cold shoulder ever since. She FaceTimed me the other night, wasted, crying that I don't love her as much as I used to. I corrected her. That's not true. I actually don't love you anymore at all. She texts and snaps me regularly trying to apologize. I think she means it, but I have no intention of responding and risking letting her back into my life. Rather not have her in my life as a constant reminder of all the suffering I went through because of her abuse. I would say you didn't ghost her. That kind of correction you gave her is a pretty clear indication that she's out of the picture, and she's just refusing to accept it. I like to think of it as ghosting because it sounds and feels more spiteful, which makes me feel so much better. Mayo. I ghosted someone I cared deeply for many years ago. I was never called out on it, but I deeply regret that I hurt someone that meant a lot to me. I take full responsibility for my actions. I think ego defense mechanisms play a part in situations where you don't have a real good reason for what you did. You just build a wall and start running, but it eventually catches up with you. I started ignoring a friend's texts after she made me feel really uncomfortable about some derogatory comments made regarding mental health. I've always struggled. Anyway, after a couple months she bluntly called me out and asked what had happened because she could feel a difference. I took that as an opportunity to explain to her how my feelings had been hurt, and I wasn't at a place to confront her about it because it was still pretty raw for me. She was surprisingly receptive and apologized for her insensitivity. We never really moved past it, but I really appreciated her directness and desire to understand, and I know she appreciated my honesty. I ghosted an ex-boss/friend. She was the reason I worked very hard some days because she would pull her own friends from work, leaving me with extra. She would be combative during barbecues and I just didn't like the person I was when talking with her. Edit. I realize the question is about being called out. I wasn't called out per se, but her consistent messages asking me what was wrong ceased after a few weeks. I felt bad about not replying, but I felt it was easier to move on instead of feeling like I'd verbally attack her for being a bad friend/bad boss. Hey PSSST. Please subscribe and like.